Welcome once again to our show. Thank you for watching. On my right, I have my co-host, Nisa Paraitza, local area media personality. Thank you, Nisa, for being on our show again.
Thank you for having me.
And we have a guest, no stranger to our show, a friend of our shows and our organization, Pat Girandi, who's a local kind of Horatio Alger's, rags to riches, a self-made businessman. And we're here to update you from the last show. Some of you may have seen his last show. And very briefly, Pat, tell us a little bit about your son and about the disease and what you've been doing to try to help other kids that are in that situation.
Basically, my son Rocco was diagnosed with thalassemia, a very rare blood disease of which there's really no cure. 16 and a half years ago, and 16 and a half years I've been working to cure him.
Okay. Now, we were talking about a firm you've started, and you both have a for-profit business firm as well as a non-for-profit, and we should put a plug that the music we heard at the beginning and the music on the last show, and we can find that show on Google Video. It also played on Cable Access Network on either channels 19 or 21, is Orphan's Hope, and I'm putting it up here. We also got it on the screen, and you got a bunch of different songs here. You have some very good music. You also have a MySpace page, and you're one of my friends on MySpace, so if anybody goes on MySpace, are you on Facebook or any other?
MySpace.com/Pat Girandi. I think I'm on Facebook, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, so MySpace.com/Pat Girandi, and this helps non-for-profit, and it's called Orphan's Hope. Now, why did you call it Orphan's Hope?
There's 3 CDs. This is the third one. The first one was Orphan's Soul. The second one was Orphan's Journey. This is Orphan's Hope. And Orphan's Hope actually coincides with the clinical trials that we're going to begin. We're announcing on Thursday in New York at Sloan Kettering.
Okay, now let's talk about that. Thursday, which is February 5th, we have these announcements of your clinical trials. You're involved with some other big corporations. Tell us what's happening February 5th, why that's so important, why that's so groundbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, February 5th, we'll announce clinical trials. Gene therapy for clinical trials in gene therapy for a major disease, the first time ever in the world. There'll be representatives from Singapore and Greece and Italy, all over the United States, that will be there, and it's actually kind of earth-shaking, not only for thalassemia, which is my son's disease, but also for sickle cell anemia, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and basically all genetic diseases in the future will be able to be treated in that way, in the way that we're going to treat thalassemia.
And Pat, on the cover of Time, we have the February 9th issue here. They have a whole spread dedicated talking about diseases that are related to stem cell research. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, when we talk about gene therapy and stem cell therapy, they're not always one and the same, but usually are. So our patients, basically, we will take the gene, which is called the beta-globin gene, which is the invention of Sloan Kettering, and get it into the patient's stem cell. It'll go back into the patient, autologous bone marrow transplant, much the way they did it in France when they treated patients with SCID, the boy in the bubble disease, and the patient is basically cured.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the science. Since I'm a lawyer, I don't want to pretend to be a scientist or a doctor. But so you take these, you take what they've invented. Now, how did they invent it? What is the process of bringing the process of what they're putting into the stem cells?
Right. I mean, 19 years ago, basically, Michelle Settlein started working on building the beta-globin gene, which is what the thalassemia patient needs. They use natural products so that it's the exact same gene that all of us have in our bodies today.
Okay. So this is really what they're talking about when they talk about gene therapy?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is it gene replacement?
I mean, you could consider a gene replacement.
Okay. So then it's injected, I'm assuming, by some kind of needle into the...
Well, there's basically an incubation. What happens is that the gene is placed into what's called a vector. We use the lentivirus vector. There are a bunch of different vectors. There's the lentivirus vector and the retrovirus vector, adenovirus vector. Again, you're an attorney. You're not a scientist, and like I said before, I didn't graduate from high school. So, but we use the lentivirus vector, and we get the gene into the lentivirus vector, and then we incubate it with the patient's stem cells, his own stem cells.
Go ahead.
We use busulfan, 6 milligrams to kilogram, to make space in the patient's bone marrow, and then we give him basically a transfusion. So we're giving him an autologous bone marrow transplant.
So from beginning to end, how long is that process? How many weeks or months?
Yeah, I mean, 6 days.
6 days. So that's really fast.
And we expect to see a response within 40 to 50 days.
Now, we were talking about stem cell, and that's the cover of Time, but actually it seems that even in a more conservative view of stem cell research, that anybody could accept this type of therapy because you're not using separately harvested human stem cells.
Yes, it has nothing to do with it. We're using the patient's own stem cells, which is, a big advantage because there's no possibility of rejection.
Okay. And not only is there no possibility of rejection, but any moral concerns or ethical concerns or legal concerns, depending on where people live, this is not the same as what we're thinking of taking dead baby stem cells or harvesting human stem cells.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Frank, there's a lot of confusion, about that. To be quite honest, I've been accused many times of being unethical because we're doing this stem cell therapy. But in fact, it's exactly what you're saying. We use the patient's own stem cells.
So it's the stem cell therapy that would be accepted by everybody and anybody. This is consensus stem cell therapy.
I would hope so.
Right. Well, I mean, in lieu of that, there's stem cell therapy that has been banned in the United States, or stem cell therapy that is considered unethical by certain people in certain countries.
Yes.
That this would be accepted, that this is legal, that this is not what people are thinking of, and a negative connotation of stem cell therapy.
Yes, Frank.
Okay.
And so how many people could this possibly help? I mean, thousands? What
there
kind
are
of
million
diseases?
thalassememic patients in the world. It's the world's largest hemoglobinopathy. And as soon as we dose this first patients in thalassemia, we're going to start sickle cell anemia. It's neat about sickle cell anemia because they're cousin diseases. Asians and Arabs, like Southern Italians and Greeks, get thalassemia. Africans get sickle cell anemia, but they're basically both hemoglobinopathies and they're cousin diseases. So I was at St. Jude recently, actually I think like December 19th and 20th.
Well, let me break in.
Sorry.
You were at St. Jude, and what I want to do is talk about St. Jude's involvement. Perhaps that's where you're going, but I wanted to make sure we preface it. St. Jude being the great organization that deals with childhood diseases, especially childhood cancer. The probably most famous face is Danny Thomas.
Yes.
They have great big fundraisers, and it's a great organization.
Wonderful organization.
And tell us about how you got connected to St. Jude, what St. Jude's doing, and now how they're on board.
Sure. The community, the gene therapy community or the genetic community is a small community. I mean, they're all over the world. And as I said, on Thursday we'll have people in from Singapore and Greece. But I have been dealing with a Professor Derek Persons at St. Jude for probably 10 years at least. I'm one of those guys that when there's something wrong or I don't understand something or I think I need a favor, I don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call anyone. And of course, when someone needs a favor or something, I don't hesitate to help them. And I think that's a very unique situation of Errantgene Therapeutics is basically me as the CEO. I have a real personal contact with these researchers all over the world. And many times it's been verified that the personal touch is really something that saves people's lives. So we've done that. But Derek Persons I've known for, I'm going to guess 10 years. And Derek is their top guy in gene therapy, or one of their top guys in gene therapy. And they're working as well in the vector, the lentivirus vector. And so we made a deal basically that we'll collaborate on thalassemia and sickle cell anemia.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the scientific aspect, not from the details, but who are some of the scientists? We were mentioning some big companies. You told me that you got some top-notch scientists. You told me at the on Thursday you're going to have people from Singapore, which has been at the cutting edge of stem cell research.
Yes.
Greece, the United
Italy,
States,
sure.
Italy, everywhere. So tell us a little bit about who some of the players are.
Sure. Michelle Settle